because something you don't know about the political system, and it's not your fault, it's been hidden from the public. Let's say a candidate raises $100 million to run for the presidency, even though he knows he can't win. How much of that money do you think goes to family and friends through all sorts of shell companies?
You tell me.
Well, you'll be shocked to find out that a goodly percentage of it is put right into the pockets of family and friends, which is why people who are running right now know they can't win, but they're doing it for the rake-off. Do you know that?
I believe
In other words, there are people in this campaign right now who, A, don't want to run, and B, know they can't win, but the money is so big that their family and friends are going to make by setting up fake shell companies, a media company, a print company, a mailing company, a consultant. There is so many hundreds of millions of dollars that they're able to steal, and perfectly legally that they're running for office even though they know they can't win. I don't think people understand how rotten the system is. And if they did know it, there's liable to be a revolution in the country.
There is this famous quote from Eric Hoffer, which I think summarizes the whole thing. And he said, all political causes begin as movements, they become a business, and they eventually degenerate into a racket. That's what's happened to the conservative movement. The post-1980s success of the Republican Party created a beltway right. It created people who were making their living from politics, what we now call in VDare.com Conservatism Inc. But there are two structural problems which we couldn't have predicted all. I mean, I didn't predict this with the Conservatism Inc. It just never occurred to me it would happen. But the two structural problems which perhaps we could have predicted if we'd thought more about the economics of political campaigns. The one is the emergence of what Ross Douthat, I believe, was called the donorist party. The sheer power that these donors have now in the American elections is quite different from what it was 20 years ago. There's an expert on Sheldon Edelson in the room, so I won't say too much about it, but my impression is that he's basically bought a foreign policy from the Republican Party, and he's in the process of buying domestic liberalism as well. He made a number of very distressing remarks about immigration recently. Here, he's great on immigration into Israel. The second thing, but at least the donors generally want to win elections. The second structural problem of the consultants, it's not clear at all to me that campaign consultants really want to win elections. I don't know how many of you have been unfortunate enough to be involved in legal action, but if you are involved in legal action, you've got to always realize that it's really a three-way fight. There's you, there's your opponent, and then there's your lawyer. And your lawyer is not on your side. His job is to get as much money as possible out of you, frequently in collusion with the other lawyer, and then move on to another client. That's really the way lawyers operate. You can't trust them to defend your interests. They're not champions of yours. And so, similarly, I think these consultants, you see that they're always looking for the next gig. They're always looking at, they're in a little coterie of campaign consultants. It's like a cabal, a clique. And they don't want to get involved in certain issues because that would cause them trouble down the road with their next clients. Also, we see the rise of candidates who are clearly donor traps. People like Fred, whatever his name was, that guy who was on television who emerged a few years ago for some mysterious reason, raised several $1 million, spent on the consultants and vanished. That happens all the time. They're about to do the same thing with Carla Fiorina for some reason. Apparently she got enough money to attract their interest. I will say this is not a unique problem to the right. It's a problem on the left. If you read Dick Morris's book Behind the Oval Office, you'll see that Clinton got really mad with him because Morris was running an air war. They always like to run as much television as possible because they get commissions on it. And Paul Clinton was going around whoring himself out and having tea parties and things like this and getting into trouble for raising money to spend on Dick Morris, and he resented it. So what happens next? Well, at a political level, the Republican Party is obviously terminally corrupt. I spent for 20, 30 years, I used to argue with people about conservative politics, and they would say, the left would say, this is just a racket, it's to defend the interests of big business and so on. And we would have all kinds of elaborate arguments why it wasn't. But it is. That's what actually... And that's what's happening right now in Congress. The Republican Congress is attempting to smuggle past the base what's clearly an unconstitutional amnesty because they can't figure out any other way of doing it. They've got to let the president do it unconstitutionally. More than 20 years ago, Lynn Nofziger, who was one of Reagan's strategists, wrote in one of his, he used to have a blog which we preserved, went into the Wayback Machine and got it. He wrote a very thoughtful article saying he'd come to the conclusion that immigration was an issue that could not be handled by the current party system. And it would actually break the party system, just as it did in the second party system was broken by the Know-Nothings and by the Civil War. Some of you may have seen Pat Caddell's recent interview in which he said that his polling shows that about half the Republican base doesn't trust its leaders. I mean, half the base, let alone independents, the base doesn't trust its leaders. He said he's never seen a result of this with a political party. Stein's law, as you know, Herb Stein's law says that when things can't go on forever, they don't. And this can't go on forever.